Hi, and welcome to the next episode of my series on large format photography, and in particular the Intrepid 4x4 camera that I bought some time ago. It's been a little while since I did my last video. I apologise for that, sometimes life just catches up with you. So we're on holiday in the English Lake District at the moment, staying in a small cottage in a town called Keswick. And in this video I'm going to talk about lens selection, so in particular the lens I bought when I first got my camera, which is this one. So it's a Nikkor SW 90mm, so it's a Nikon lens, obviously designed for a 4x5 camera. And I said in one of the earlier videos that lens choice is one of the more confusing things that I had to deal with when I was trying to choose my first setup. And it's not so much the lens itself, it was more this thing, the lens board. And I'll come on to that in a second. But basically, I chose a 90mm lens, mainly because I wanted something wide angle, and I've just got my crib sheet here. And 90mm is about 22 and 35mm terms, and I'm obviously more used to working in 35mm terms. It's not the ideal length that I was after. I was after something more, so 24 to 28mm, which would have given me about 100 to 110mm as a large format lens, because primarily I do landscape photography and nature photography, and I wanted just something that was wide and I was comfortable with based on the 35mm lenses that I've used. But what I found is when I was looking for a lens, I wanted to buy one rather than just buy straight off eBay. I wanted to buy certainly my initial gear from a shop where I could go back to if I needed to get advice, and potentially even send it back if I got the wrong thing. So looking in the UK, there are a number of second-hand retailers, and I got this lens from Ford, so based up in Scotland. And the reason I chose this one is that I just couldn't find anybody selling something in the 100, 110 range with a lens board attached. Now, as I say, the lens board is quite important to me because I didn't really understand how these worked, and I thought I'd have something very specific for my camera. And I think now that I've actually got this, and I understand it is literally just in this case a piece of metal, but a board that the lens fits into, I think I was less concerned about buying just lenses and boards separately, or even maybe potentially making my own boards, which I've seen some videos on. So I ended up with 22mm 35mm equivalent, so it's 90. It's got a Copal 0 shutter, and so basically what this is if you're not sure about how these work, you've got the objective lens, that's sort of front element lens here, which faces your subject. You've got the shutter here, which this as I say is a Copal 0 shutter. You've got the board, and then you've got the rear element. And basically the whole thing just unscrews, so you can sort of take this rear component off, comes off like that, and then you can basically unscrew this as well. I'll not do that, it takes a little while to unscrew, and then you can just basically take the lens board off as well. So the whole thing just comes apart quite easily. It's very easy to swap lenses around. I apologise for the background noise if you can hear it. I think someone's actually having a shower. So the way that this lens works, basically, that's a good point actually, something I meant to mention. One of the disadvantages of this particular lens is that it's a maximum aperture of f8, and the implication of that is that the actual image when you're looking through the camera is quite dull. I mean, if you think about it, if you actually, on your DSLR, if you've got a DSLR now, if you change the aperture to f8 and then do the depth of field preview, on most DSLRs, the image will darken. If you've got a mirrorless camera, it possibly won't work that way, but certainly on DSLR they tend to darken, and you'll see just how dark the image is, and that's what you're working with. If I got a faster lens, one that's got a wider aperture, it would be much brighter, but in this case I don't, it's an f8. And the range is f8 to f64, and basically this little slider lets you go all the way across. For focusing purposes I tend to just have it all the way over to the stop on this side past f8, just have it as wide as possible. And then this basically controls, this switch here controls whether the aperture just stays open, the shutter stays open, because obviously when you're trying to focus you want the shutter to be open and the lens aperture to be as wide as possible, just so you get as much lighting as possible, certainly with this. The other thing that this has got is to cock the shutter, just pull the little lever across and that will just engage it. And then over here, I don't know if you can see that, just here there's a release mechanism, and you just probably heard it release then. And if you want to, you can screw a cable release in there, which is what I tend to do. It's also got a PC, it's got a flash sync output as well, so you can trigger a flash from this particular lens. I'm not entirely sure I'd use that very much, but it's just something there if I need it. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I suppose the other thing I should have said is there's a ring here that controls the shutter speed. So I've got basically 1 second all the way up to a 500th of a second on this particular lens, and that's probably about it. As I say, I mean, it's probably not the perfect lens that I'd actually wanted, but I'm quite happy with it. I do have a few issues trying to focus, given the it is f8 as a maximum aperture, but it's not impossible. No, I've actually talked about a change to the dark cloth that I use now. But all in all, I think my advice is for this particular lens, if you're buying your first one, if you can, buy something that's possibly has a wider aperture than f8, just to make focusing a little bit easier. But admittedly they're a lot more expensive than this sort of lens, so as I easily get by with this, it's not an issue. And don't worry too much about getting a lens board with the lens already mounted. If you can get the right type of board and a separate lens, then just do that, because you just easily screw back together. You're supposed to actually have a wrench to tighten this bit up here, tighten this bit to the board, but I don't have a wrench, I just finger tighten, it's been fine. I probably will buy a wrench at some point just to be on the safe side, but it's not a necessary requirement, certainly not for this one anyway. So yeah, so I think if you want to just, if you're having trouble finding the right combination, just don't worry about buying separate pieces and just putting them together, because they will fit. I mean, the key thing I think is the shutter and the and this lens. I mean, often these come together, or this bit comes together and this comes separately, and that's fine. Just unscrew it, put it together again. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions, obviously pop them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. Or if I can't answer them in the comments, if it takes us a bit longer, I might do another video just explaining this. Alright, hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for watching. Bye for now.